Welcome back to another episode of the Circle of Knowledge podcast. This is your host, John Kovach Jr. Really excited about today's interview. I'm really excited to just jump on in and get into this process, because this is there's a lot of stories to be told and a lot of information to be had. But I'm really excited just again to announce that the Champion Circle Networking Association, based in Salt Lake City, Utah, is growing. And if you want to learn more about the networking association that we do, it is it's growing, and you can find it online at mychampioncircle.com. If you want to go check that out, it'll take you to an opportunity to learn about what we're doing, where our events are at, and so much more. But I want to get into today's conversations, because today I'm going to interview an individual who has helped over several thousands of he's let so many people get into medical school and to get placed there. And I wanted to talk more about that. I have the opportunity of interviewing Shirag Shemmassian, and he is the founder of Shemmassian Academic Consulting, one of the world's foremost experts on medical school admissions, college admissions, and graduate school admissions. For nearly 20 years, he and his team have helped thousands of students get into medical school and top colleges using his systematic and proprietary approach, which I'm excited to talk about, to get into. And I'm really excited too, because I have two family members who were brilliantly minded and made it to medical school and did some really cool stuff there. And then my brother and I were more of the athletes, so we didn't go the medical route. But I'm really excited to introduce you guys to Shirag Shemmassian. Shirag, thank you so much for joining me on the Circle of Knowledge podcast today.
Hey, thanks for having me, John. It was funny when you were saying Circle of Knowledge and then you said Shemmassian Academic Consulting. I was like, one of these rolls off the tongue a little bit more easily than the other. So that was pretty funny to me.
Good tongue twisters, but you and I we're our backgrounds come from several parts of the world that people just don't know how to pronounce it correctly, and I respect that. It's okay, we're used to that. But as I was saying, I have two sisters who went off to medical school. One's just wrapping up her degree, and it's cool and it's refreshing to kind of hear a little bit about you and your background. Mm-hmm. And there was my brother and I. We were the jocks.
Well, congratulations to your sisters.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I want to pass the mic on over to you, because obviously I've shared a little bit of your bio, but there's so much more to you. And here's the first loaded question, which is tell us a little bit about how you got here today. What's your background? How'd you get here, and so forth? Why do you do it? And I'm really excited to just dive more into that.
Yeah, this is one of those things. This is one of those jobs where I've never heard, an 8-10-year-old, when you ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up, say, I want to be a medical school admissions consultant. I've never heard that. I don't think I ever will. So it's not something you think about when you're a little kid. Certainly not something that I thought about when I was a kid. But really, John, it was born out of necessity, and it grew organically. And what I mean by that is, we were talking before we got on about how I grew up in Los Angeles, and I have immigrant parents, and they handed over to my brother and me what I call the immigrant menu, right, of career options. So you get to be a doctor, a dentist, an engineer, a lawyer, that kind of thing. And my brother and I love the life sciences, and we were drawn to medicine when we were kids, and to good colleges. My parents were always pushing for that. And then we got to the point of high school, and we're like, all right, time for college. What do we do? They're like, we don't know. We didn't go to school here. And we're like, okay. And it was a little bit of a emperor has no clothes kind of situation. And so we had to, learn ourselves how to get into great colleges and, graduate programs and so on. And so we were self-taught. And this was, we're talking in 2022, but I'm talking the days where you had to go to Barnes and Noble if you wanted to learn anything, and pick up a book. And it's kind of funny now. But so, I was self-taught with the process, and I wanted to go to a great school, and I was able to get into Cornell and get, full scholarships and graduate debt free and all that kind of stuff. And along the way, I just started getting a lot of questions from people who had similar aspirations, but didn't know how to do it. And they're like, hey, I heard you got into this school and you're getting these scholarships, kind of want to do those things too. And so started helping people, they're successful, they tell their friend, who tells their cousin, who, that kind of thing. So it's kind of a little bit contained. And then over time, what ended up happening is I started writing about these topics. I started thinking more about these topics, writing more about these topics. But when I was in college too, I was helping people get into med school. So I was just like developing an interest in this because I wanted to get into these types of programs. Now, so what happened along the way is, as I was helping other people and the word of mouth grew, I was like, all right, there have to be some resources, because I find myself sharing similar pieces of knowledge, like foundational knowledge for people, and started blogging about it. And it really just kind of snowballed from there. And as I was helping more people and they were having tremendous success, I was like, okay, I really love this. And this is something that's adding a ton of value to the world. And I just want to help more people with this process. And that's really how I got into it. Again, it was out of my own self-interest. I don't mean that in a negative way, but I wanted to get into grade school. So I learned, helped other people. They got in, it grew, and now we're here. And this is what I do full time.
That's amazing. I have to tell you that it's amazing how you take the interest of other people who say, "Hey, I see what you're doing, and I want to learn more about that." And it's fascinating to me. When I was in college, I ended up cash flowing my college experience, and part of the people and the process who helped fund that process for my peers, because they didn't know that there was this thing on campus called the Career Resource Center, and I was like hanging out there every day. And these kids were like, how are you getting these internships? How are you getting these jobs? How is your resume and your LinkedIn profile looking so great? And I was like, pay me $100 and I'll do it for you. And I would just take their stuff and go to the Career Resource Center, do it for them there, and then come back and be like, here you go.
Yeah.
But obviously what you've done and what you're doing is far more than just a career resource. It's placement. It's creating opportunities for people that, just may need a little bit more information, a little bit more connection. And I respect that. And I think that's super cool. And it's funny too that you say that no one grows up saying, I want to be a placement counselor. Like I want to put people there, but
right.
It's amazing what skill sets we develop through our own experiences, and we can turn around. And I think that those who can turn around and monetize and create things from the masterful experiences they've received, that's the kind of people that we need to learn from. And so I'm excited to learn from you today and more of that topic. But diving deeper into what it is that you're obviously doing today, and you're providing those resources for more and more people. What are some of the general questions you get? Like, what are some of the things that people are usually looking for, and what are some resources you obviously provide in response to some of these things?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like any expert in any field will probably have a shared experience with what I'll say now. Essentially, people come into calls with me with their resumes and their stats, their GPA and their test scores and all this kind of stuff. And one of the things that people love to ask is, well, what are my chances? Just like that general question. I think they're looking for me to say like 72, but that's sort of an arbitrary number. And really what people are looking to understand is, okay, like I know I have to do well academically. I know that I have to do well extracurricularly, but I don't quite know what's enough. I don't know what good extracurriculars look like. I don't know what stats are sufficient. I don't know what schools I should apply to based on my whole profile. Because in the States, of course, we have holistic admissions where they consider every aspect of your background. This is a very American concept. Something that we take for granted is not practiced around the world. And so we have a lot of families too who, again, their parents are immigrants from India, from Korea, from China, from the Middle East, whatever. And they often say, well, we don't know what this whole like what essays, rec letters, like what's that all about. And so our job is really, like, when I hear these questions, I'm hearing questions that are like big questions. What are my chances? Where do I apply? And my job is to make it very granular about understanding how you performed academically, but also as far as extracurriculars, how many hours did you have in different categories? What was your depth of experience? What were your increasing responsibilities? What is your personal background? How did you even get here? And make sure to identify themes that cut across different experiences, and seeing, okay, what schools does your profile really match with? How do we write essays in such a way that a school says, aha, that's he's one of us, or she's one of us. That's our job, essentially developing an overall application narrative, assisting with developing essays, interview coaching, waitlist letter support. We also offer one-on-one test prep for MCAT and etc. So it's really just comprehensive planning around how do you position yourself to be successful with these admissions processes.
Wow, man, that's fantastic background. And this process of what you do, and obviously you guys have had a lot of success doing it. You've been recognized by the Washington Post, Business Insider. You've had some opportunities to speak yourself over at Yale and Stanford and UC Berkeley, and on a lot of these various processes. How does something like placement and admissions get the kind of recognition that yours has?
So I think doing it well for a long enough time. I mean, it's one of these things where, I mean, you can go looking for publicity and all that kind of stuff, but
Sure.
we've been very fortunate to, to be sort of discovered. I don't spend a dollar on advertising, John, or anything like that. So my thing has always been about developing really high quality resources, as far as making sure that others, can find the information that they need online. So if you search for some topic on med school admissions, you'll often see our work come up, and that's really impactful because then students are like, oh, like I read this thing, it was super valuable, and then they get in touch. But then similarly, we've had places approach us, to see if we'd be a quoted expert or served as an expert witness in various legal cases and stuff like this, just because of the quality you put out there, and folks say, wow, this guy must know something. And so that's been a treat. And then, undergraduate research, organizations and school organizations, oftentimes they'll be looking for guest speakers and things like this. So, was recently invited to speak at Harvard, to female students there who are interested in medicine and the biosciences. And it's just an honor, I mean, to be invited to these places. And my job is just to say, all right, I want to deliver, help to y'all and help you wrap your heads around a pretty complex process. And when you do that, I think good things follow.
A little pop quiz for my listeners, and I'm just curious because I think I know the answer, but I'm actually hoping that I'll be surprised. For you, Shirag, which group of higher education seekers is more popular for the business and the work that you do? Is it for the undergrad? Is it for the higher grad? Or is it for like the medical school? Which one's the most popular?
Medical school, hands down. We're by far and away most known for medical school admissions. I mean, we assist a very small group of undergraduate applicants, students who are very serious about admissions, especially people who are applying to direct med programs, like those 7 or 8 year programs that are undergrad through med school, or students who are looking to get into Ivy League schools and things like that, but who want to go into medicine later. So our bread and butter is assisting people, with getting into medical school, sometimes as early as high school, but usually throughout the college years.
Wow. Wow, that's interesting. I figured it was that. That was my thought. And then part of me was like, I wonder if the undergrad process is pretty popular too, because of that let's call it the vanity of most people wanting to be placed in either a college or a higher college, or getting into the colleges that everyone wants to be a part of.
That's certainly a bigger space, right? Because you have more people apply to college than do medical school, not even close, right? Sure. So it's a much, much bigger space. But, I've decided that I want to become, I want to niche down and become really, really, really expert in a single space or a couple spaces. And that's really, how I like to approach my work.
That's wonderful. Well, I before we dive more into that, and I also want to ask you the golden question of what golden nuggets of knowledge would you like to share with our audience today. But before that, just a little bit more about yourself. Like, what are some of your interests, and what do you like to do other than admission counseling and consulting?
Sure. So some of it is very linked to what I do, and some of it is not at all linked to what I do. I genuinely love people, John. I think I'm the kind of person who can like talk to a wall, if you will, and really love to get to know. Yeah, and really just love to get to know people. One of my favorite parts of the job, in addition to like celebrating people's acceptances and all that kind of stuff, is just literally getting to know them. Where are you from? Where's your family from? What do you like to do? Why do you want to do this work, etc. and just understanding who they are, because I find great interest in every single person that I meet. And my job allows me to do that, and it's such a blessing to be able to do that and touch different people in this way. And I'm just incredibly humbled and grateful for that opportunity. As far as things completely outside of missions consulting, my number one hobby, I think it sort of oscillates between food and sports. By food, I mean, like, I read about food, I look at pictures of food, I make lists about places I want to eat, I cook a lot of food. So I love food and food history and geography and all this kind of stuff, and traveling for it and etc. So that's a huge passion of mine. And my wife, sometimes makes fun of me. She's like, "Why are you watching this show? Like, you can't eat it." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it gets me excited about X, Y, and Z." She doesn't get it. But anyway, I'm also a big sports fan. I love basketball. I'm a huge Lakers fan, even though I'm kind of embarrassed talking about that today in 2022 about how they're doing. But no, general sports fan. I watch baseball, I watch football, but I'm a big, big basketball lover.
That's awesome. And I have to share, it was something in your bio that really cracked me up, but also made me smile, which was you don't like the word foodie. It's not that you're a foodie, it's that you love food.
That's right.
And you said that you would travel great lengths and distances to go and have an experience with food,
Yep.
which which in a way is better than a connoisseur. It's a respecter of the arts and a desire for more taste and flavor.
Yep.
and interest. So I
I
thought
love
that was
it.
really interesting.
I love it. Yeah, from the hole in the wall to the upscale and everything in between. I mean, I'm just obsessed. That's what I love to do.
And you've probably got some great stories about restaurants or recommendations. It's hard to pick one out of the many categories of different interests, but has there been one experience or one interest that's just like, look, if you're here, go there now and have this meal or whatever? I'm sure you've got more than a dozen or so stories, but
I mean, it's so individual. I mean, because like there's a good story, like behind, every like meal and every place and the person who makes it, etc. Like, I grew up in Los Angeles, and oftentimes I find myself recommending, a small like Lebanese Armenian sandwich shop in this corner of Santa Monica and Normandy called Falafel Araks, and it's just like it's the best in this country of that particular thing, which is like, and then there's similar things in, yeah, I mean, but there's things like that in San Diego, like Baja cuisine and ceviches and birria and all this kind of stuff, and then also from like the Filipino community, National City, and like this area of the Philippines, and just like I just love getting into that sort of thing, and exploring and getting to know like the owners and asking about how they make stuff and then riffing on that at home. And I love that. So if anyone ever wants to get in touch, hey, I'm in this town and I want this kind of dish, what do I do? Like, I love answering those questions. But
that's awesome. If we ever get together in the future, which we totally should,
we'd love that.
I'm in San Diego all the time, but
yeah.
One of my favorite things to do is, so I lived in the Philippines for a couple of years, did a ecclesiastical mission, and I was sick and tired of having people cook for me. I was like, stop it. I can cook for myself.
Yes.
Just teach me what you want to eat and I'll do it. And so I learned a little bit of Philippine cuisine. And so what I love to do with friends is create an at-home Philippine kamayan, which literally we put down the banana leaves, we throw the rice pot on the banana leaves, and we take the main dish and pot, and we just eat with our hands. The kamayan is just use your hands and dish it up. And
very communal.
It's fun. I love it.
Yeah, and I love it. And Philippine food is having a big moment in our country, which is exciting because I think it's such an underappreciated cuisine. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I saw recently, and I'll get more into. We'll get back on track here. I saw quite a few more Philippine-based food trucks, which taking the road and spreading the we'll call it the evangelical gospel of Filipino cuisine, which is awesome.
Amen.
It's great.
Amen. It's lovely.
Back to you and back to your story. I'd love to pour into you and just ask you to share. What are some nuggets of knowledge that you really, really think that people should know, things that you've learned or things that you love, but really some impactful things. What's a nugget of knowledge that you'd like to share with my audience?
Yeah, I mean, there are two ways for me to think about this. One is about like admissions itself, but then more so about what it takes to, serve people well. And I think I'll focus on the latter a little bit because we've talked a little bit about what I do. What I found to be really valuable in my work is really, again, we were talking about niching down earlier. Initially when I started doing this work, I have a lot of expertise in undergraduate admissions in addition to medical school and other kinds of graduate programs, etc. And I recall like early on me sort of having this almost like scarcity mentality, right? Of boy, well, I should offer this and this and this because I don't want to miss this kind of customer and I don't want to miss this kind of student, etc. And I found that that was sort of taking my attention in different places. And also, it didn't allow people who were seeking our services to understand what I was all about. And so I think it had the opposite effect. When you think you're missing out on something, you're actually putting yourself in a position where you actually do miss out on the things that you want. And so I just encourage folks who, are looking to, develop a name for what it is that they do to develop confidence in being niche, right? I think people talk about the riches are in the niches, or like there are all these kinds of phrases out there. But I think a lot of us worry about sort of lowering our ceilings if we niche. And it's one of those things where you won't quite get it until you do it. But I think that level of focus is really important. And for me, what's been really valuable is not only niching in terms of like specializing in medical school admissions and doing that as a bread and butter, but also in the way that we do our work. Like before, for years, people are like, you got to do video, you got to do video. And I always thought that, our blog can improve. And because our work is really nerdy, right? It's like, it really
Right.
benefits from like text-based content and sample essays and things like this. I was like, I want to basically eat all the meat off the bone before we move on. So I've been, the type of person who's like, let's master this, let's make sure it's great before we start spreading ourselves in different directions. So we still don't do social media and all this kind of stuff, but really niching and becoming expert in delivering your background and content in certain ways, and also in certain fields, I think has been probably one of the biggest pieces of advice that I can give people.
I love that you went that direction, because while this is applicable to your various area of expertise, the concept of taking your niche, to focusing down, and then to allow yourself to not be emotionally tied to either the things you're missing out on or the ceilings that you've created through the niche, because that is a principle that, one, all entrepreneurs need to know. Two, every business should be more aware of these concepts. And three, I would go as far as say, like, in any particular aspect of your life, if you can boil it down to what the essential needs and mission are, then you will have a clearer, and clarity is huge for business,
Mm-hmm.
but you'll have a clearer vision of what needs to be done, how to do it, and
Mm-hmm.
so much more. And I love that you've gone that direction, because this conversation is vital to pretty much everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally true. You got to specialize. You got to be known as the blank guy or the blank gal, if you will. Otherwise, it's hard to differentiate.
I love that. Given in my space as a motivational speaker, I can be known as a motivational speaker, or I can be known as the guy that does
Mm-hmm.
X, Y, or
That's
Z, and I
mhm.
think that that's
Exactly.
extremely vital. I love this concept, and I'd love to dive deeper into it. I'd love to know from you, Shirag, what's an action step that anyone could take based on the information that we've talked about today? What's something that they could take immediate action on and start applying towards their life, their business, their daily?
Pick one thing. Pick one thing. Like going off of what I just said. I think it's very easy to get blown by the winds, so to speak, about what you should do and chase this shiny object versus that shiny object. But I encourage people to pick one thing. I don't care if that one thing is like an area of expertise. Like if you're looking to open like a kitchen store, like if you're going to specialize in knives or pan, or like pick one thing and like really niche down in that thing. Or if it's in terms of content, whether you're going to do blogging or YouTube or social media or whatever, pick one thing and commit yourself to that thing. And that's what I encourage folks to do. So literally the picking is the one thing that I encourage people to do as an action step to get very clear. I mean, for me, the one thing, that we're really focusing right now is on developing courses, for our students, because we've done a lot, we've developed a lot of information that's out there for people in terms of blogs and videos and all that kind of stuff, and now it's thinking about, okay, and we deliver a great one-on-one service, but there are some folks who want it self-guided, so we're picking one thing. There are other projects we have in the background that we want to get started on, but right now is just about developing these online courses, and so nerding out about that and thinking about what that experience is going to be like. And there will be there will always be something more to do, and there will always be someone saying, you got to do this because it worked for me. But there's more than one way to get to the end destination, so just focus on that one thing and become expert.
I value what you said, and I admire that, because I agree with it wholeheartedly. And it is a refreshing reminder of what needs to happen in many of our lives and what we do. You mentioned you guys are moving into coursework and online courses. You mentioned the blogs and stuff that you've done for marketing in the past. Is a book, or has a book been in your past or history, publishing and so forth?
Haven't thought, as far as the admissions process, haven't thought too seriously about publishing a book. We're actually working on like book materials for test prep, because we have a ton of guides on our website about how to do well on the MCAT. We have essentially a book's worth, hundreds and hundreds of pages of content, and that's something that we're currently working to to edit and put in InDesign and all these kinds of things that I don't really understand very well. But as far as like the admissions process, perhaps down the line, when we're thinking about how to reach more people with the resources that we've put out. But yeah, no current plans to do books outside of the MCAT prep.
It seems fitting, and I understand.
Yeah,
that,
I could see it going in that direction at some point.
What popped into my brain, and I'm just brainstorming randomly because we don't really mastermind much on the show, but I was thinking, man, like BuzzFeed does a bunch of those quizzes and things that attract a lot of people, and I thought, wow, that'd be interesting. I'd want to know now that I take education a lot more seriously than I did when I was actually in college. It'd be interesting to see, like, what would my projected SAT, ACT, what would that be now that I've grown up a little bit? But it'd be interesting. But
for sure.
Well, Shirag, I admire what you do. I'm grateful for the information you've shared with my listeners. Thank you for the simplicity and the directness that you've shared. And I think that reminder is just so important. And I want to send people your way if they're interested in learning more. Obviously, you guys have a lot of success helping people get into that higher education. From somebody who's observed my sisters go through the process of med school, I know that their placement was the most stressful part. The second most part was actually passing their courses and clinicals, and the rest of it was easy for them because that's their focus. And I want to send people your way and just make sure that they know that they can connect with you via, and I think I spelled it right, but
you did. I was reading it while you were speaking. You got it right. Yeah.
I try to. Us weird last name type people, we get each other. We know how to spell.
I know. You're like, is that a double M? Yeah, it's a double M. Is that a double? Yeah, yes, I know. We're paying particular attention. We know the life.
We sure do. I want to invite my listeners. You guys go and check him out. Visit his website, www.shemmassianconsulting.com, and you can read the same bio that I learned more about him and how we connected and so much more. If you are interested in any opportunities to get into the higher education processes, this is a great consulting opportunity to learn more and to connect and just get the answers you need, because I'm sure they're going to tell you, it's important to do exactly what it is you want. And Shirag is extremely personable and wants to meet you, because that's his passion in life, is to getting to know more and more people. Out of curiosity, is there anything else you'd like to point my listeners to, share with them, or provide any more information?
Honestly, you've been so generous, John, in terms of, providing this platform to speak with folks. But no, really, if anyone wants to get in touch, they can just go to the site. There's a contact link at the top right corner of the page, very, very visible. And I would love to help, whatever people are looking to get into, be happy to chat about it.
Good. And I'm excited because something that you probably don't know, Shirag, and I should have told you before the show, is, the demographics of the audience of this show. About 60% women, 40% men. Mostly are entrepreneurs within the first 3 years of business, and usually they're in that pivotal moment of, okay, we need to scale and move to the 3 to 5 year plan in business, or they're in that position where I think there's a lot more I need to learn right now about what I'm doing, and then they seek the higher education. And so this is actually a really great niche for my listeners to say, hey, this is an absolutely recommendable resource, and I highly want to highlight that and send them your way. So
thank you, John. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Absolutely. And I appreciate your time on the show today, and thank you for your interview. I look forward to connecting with you in San Diego soon. And
we'll do it.
I'm looking forward to a really great food recommendation.
We'll do it. Come hungry, John.
I'm always hungry. I'm an ex-athlete, so there you go.
There you go. There you go.
Shirag, thank you so much for your time. And to my listeners, again, everything you need is within you now. Just take the knowledge you've received today from Shirag Shemmassian. There we go. Now I finally messed it up that I that we've practiced it a couple of times. Take the time to take immediate action on what you've learned. Go and connect with him. Learn as much as you can, and do all that you can to make yourself to better yourself and improve in every area of your life. With that being said, this has been another awesome episode of the Circle of Knowledge podcast. Shirag, thank you again for your time.
Thanks, John. See y'all.
See ya.